Welcome to College Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: are you being gouged at the supermarket checkout? Here's what we know. GOP Representative Virginia Foxx admonishes Harvard for unacceptable response to anti-Semitism investigation. Biden to speak at United Auto Workers Conference as he woos blue-collar vote in battleground states. Texas A&M uses the free throw line and Wade Taylor IVs 19 points to get past Missouri 63-57. Mozzies spread flesh-eating bacteria from possums to humans, scientists say. Are you being gouged at the supermarket checkout? Here's what we know. ABC. Australian supermarket chains Coles and Woolworths are facing inquiries into allegations of price gouging. Former ACCC Chair Alan Fels and the Australian Council of Trade Unions are conducting one inquiry, while a government-led inquiry, led by former Cabinet Minister Craig Emerson, is also taking place. The inquiries aim to determine whether the supermarkets are marking up prices above costs. The ACCC requires government approval to examine the supermarket's accounts to determine whether price gouging is taking place. The inquiries come as the public expresses frustration over high prices at the checkout. GOP Representative Virginia Foxx admonishes Harvard for unacceptable response to anti-Semitism investigation. CNN. Harvard University has been criticized for failing to provide lawmakers with all the documents they demanded in their investigation into anti-Semitism at the Ivy League school. The chairwoman of the House Education Committee, Virginia Foxx, described Harvard's initial supply of documents as woefully inadequate and warned of compulsory measures if the university fails to comply with the committee's requests. Foxx had written to Harvard leaders requesting 24 categories of documents, including reports of anti-Semitic incidents, the university's response to such incidents and information on the school's diversity office and foreign donations. Biden to speak at United Auto Workers Conference as he woos blue-collar vote in battleground states. Associated Press. The United Auto Workers, UAW, union has closed its three-day political convention in Washington, D.C., and President Joe Biden is expected to give the keynote address. However, it is not clear whether the union will endorse Biden's re-election bid. UAW President Shawn Fain said the union had to make political leaders stand up with us and support their cause to gain an endorsement. Biden has positioned himself as the most labor-friendly leader in U.S. history and has shown support for the UAW by joining striking GM workers on a picket line. However, some union members are not enthusiastic about his presidency, particularly in light of his perceived support for Israel's actions in Gaza. The UAW usually endorses a candidate closer to the election, and an endorsement from the union could help sway undecided UAW members and non-union blue-collar white males, according to former union spokesman Brian Rothenberg. Texas A&M uses the free throw line and Wade Taylor IVs 19 points to get past Missouri 63-57. Associated Press. Texas A&M defeated Missouri 63-57 in a college basketball game on Tuesday night. Wade Taylor IV led Texas A&M with 19 points, while Sean East II scored 17 points for Missouri. Texas A&M scored half of its first half points from the free throw line and made 27 of 37 free throw attempts overall. Missouri shot 39% from the field and committed 15 turnovers. Mozzies spread flesh-eating bacteria from possums to humans, scientists say. ABC. Researchers from Victoria's Doherty Institute have discovered that a flesh-eating bacteria affecting Australians is being spread by mosquito bites, with the infected mosquitoes picking up the bacteria from possums. The bacteria causes the Buruli ulcer and has been present in Australia since the 1940s, with cases surging from around 20 to 30 a year to 363 in Victoria alone last year. Researchers said the findings allow for preventative steps to be taken against the ulcer, such as using insect repellent and removing stagnant water from around homes. As US-China tech war heats up, scientists find new material to cool quantum computers. South China Morning Post. Chinese scientists have identified a cobalt-based quantum magnetic material that can be used as a coolant for quantum computing. The team, from the Chinese Academy of Sciences laboratory in Beijing, have developed a supersolid, a solid structure that also behaves like a fluid. This material can achieve ultra-low temperatures below 1 Kelvin. The use of helium, the coolant traditionally used, is restricted by its scarcity, as well as the potential for import restrictions being imposed by the U.S. Rail workers in Germany start 6-day strike over pay and hours. New York Times. German passenger train drivers have walked off the job for 6 days in a strike over working conditions and pay that is expected to halt most long-distance and commuter rail travel across the country. The strike, one of the most significant in years, is scheduled to run through the weekend and will therefore affect more leisure travelers than the recent previous strikes, which have taken place during the week and lasted no longer than 3 days. Trump boosts hold on GOP nomination with decisive New Hampshire primary win. Al Jazeera. Donald Trump has secured a decisive victory in New Hampshire's first-in-the-nation primary, beating his Republican rival Nikki Haley by a substantial margin. The final results have not yet been announced, but projections show Trump with a double-digit lead with about half of the votes counted. This follows a similarly strong showing in the Iowa caucuses last week, cementing his lead in the race for the Republican presidential nomination ahead of November's general election. QB Will Rogers says he intends to stay at Washington after coaching change. Associated Press. Quarterback Will Rogers has chosen to stay at the University of Washington after entering the transfer portal. Rogers expressed his commitment to the Huskies and new coach Jedd Fisch, saying he has faith that Fisch will lead the team to compete at a high level. Rogers had entered the transfer portal for a second time after coach Kalen DeBoer left Washington to take a head coaching job at Alabama. Rogers, who played for Mississippi State before transferring to Washington, is likely to be the Huskies' starting quarterback next season. The beginning of deflation. Haruhiko Kuroda, 18. Nikkei Asia. Haruhiko Kuroda, former governor of the Bank of Japan, wrote a series of articles on his personal history. In his latest article, Kuroda discussed his frustrations with the Bank of Japan's (BOJ) policies when he became Deputy Vice Minister of Finance for International Affairs in 1999. Kuroda disagreed with the BOJ's decision to end the zero-interest rate policy in 2000, and believed it was a mistake. He also expressed his concerns about the BOJ governor's comments on monetary policy and exchange rates. How Trump is steamrolling through the Republican primaries. Financial Times. Donald Trump has won the New Hampshire primary, following his victory in the Iowa caucuses, giving him a commanding lead in the early stages of the Republican presidential primaries. Trump's performance in both states has been an improvement on his debut in 2016, despite facing numerous criminal charges and refusing to participate in debates. His only remaining opponent, Nikki Haley, is trailing behind and faces bleak prospects as no Republican has won the nomination without winning either the Iowa caucuses or the New Hampshire primary. Haley's poor performance could result in a loss of funding from donors. China science deal must address U.S. national security concerns, State Department. South China Morning Post. The U.S.-China Science and Technology Cooperation Agreement is dependent on both countries agreeing to new terms that address U.S. national security concerns, according to Jason Donovan, Director of Science and Technology Cooperation at the U.S. State Department. The deal, which was originally signed in 1979 and allows for government-to-government cooperation in science, is currently being negotiated by both sides. The U.S. is seeking to strengthen the agreement to protect intellectual property rights and prevent China's military from benefiting from it. Wednesday's time schedule. Associated Press. The following is a list of scheduled NBA, NHL, PWHL, and college basketball games for January 24. Some notable matchups include the Charlotte Hornets versus the Detroit Pistons in the NBA, the Arizona Coyotes versus the Florida Panthers in the NHL, and the number 8 Auburn Tigers versus the Alabama Crimson Tide in men's college basketball. Divider-in-chief seizes Republican crown, but not yet America's. The Sydney Morning Herald. Former U.S. President Donald Trump is likely to run for president again in 2024 and will demand loyalty from every elected Republican to endorse his candidacy, writes Bruce Wolpe in the Sydney Morning Herald. While Trump crushed the Republican field in the first two competitive primaries, he did not receive the full support of his party, with 10% of Republicans being never-Trumpers and 30% being open to voting for someone else in 2024. If President Joe Biden can attract a measurable margin of disaffected Republican voters in key swing states, it could offset his falling support among key Democratic groups. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6 Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6 Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.